So first of all, I'd like to introduce Laurie Donald, who's going to be moderating the question and answer period tonight. She is the director of lifestyle programming at WGBH TV Boston. She's also the executive producer for national program development at WGBH in Studio 6. She is an Emmy, Peabody, and James Beard award-winning executive producer and director, and has been guiding content for some of National Public Television's most beloved documentaries and programs for over 30 years. She, of course, has done a lot of their food-related programming, including overseeing a broad range of food programming with Simply Ming, Lydia Celebrates America, Gourmet's Diary of a Foodie, Food Trip with Todd English, Mind of a Chef, among others. So, welcome.
Hey!
What can I say about Coach Daniel except
Thank you.
Master Chef and all-around great guy?
Hey. Yeah, thank you. So
Jacques, I want to start with just kind of what's your reaction when you look back at your career, your life, all the people who you've touched, and I have to say, let's just hear it again for Jacques because it almost brings me to tears.
I saw it last week in San Francisco. That's where we. Am I on? No. I don't know if I was amazed. You know, I mean, a lot of the footage, I have no idea where he found it. You know, I have, Vita can tell you here, I'm in the archive of Boston University, and they came to get stuff from you. But some other stuff, picture and all, I had never seen in my life, so I don't know where he found it. Peter Stein is really the one who made the show, the producer. Not me, you know, really. So I was amazed, and I'm a bit of an existentialist, you know. I always never think of the past. I always kind of think of the present, project myself in the future. So when you have something like that done on you, it kind of sets you up in stone right there. So there's no way I can move forward or back. I am there forever. So it's a bit unsettling, but otherwise, I really loved it. I mean, my wife was great, Claude was great. I think actually that the show, I mean the tape that PBS is going to sell with that show when it will be sent is at least 30 minutes longer, Peter told me. So I know in there is my mother, and I haven't seen it, but I'm looking forward to see that other one too.
Great. I want to just roll back a little bit because maybe it's because I'm a mother myself, but I want to know, going back, I mean, first of all, I was taken by the fact that when you were 13 years old, you had the vision to say, I don't want to stay in school, I'm following my passion. What was it? What was that fire in your belly that made you say, cooking is my life, cooking is my passion? How did you know that at 13? I
don't know. I mean, I started, I mean, I was in the kitchen when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, because that's the way it was. So I don't know whether it was a fire in my belly or rather the fact that my father was a cabinet maker, my mother was a cook, we had blinder on our eyes, there was no television, I didn't know I could become famous in half an hour on television. You know, there was no radio, we didn't even have radio or telephone when I was a kid. So I think that the choice was much easier than it is for young people now. As I say, we had blinder on our eyes. I mean, either I did what my father did or what my mother did. So, you know, I went into that direction. I already loved it, you know, but I had never thought that I could be, I don't know, a doctor, a lawyer, any of this. It was so far away from what my family was, as well for Claude, the same way, you know. It was another world.
What were some moments, looking back just with your mom, just the most memorable moments of just food experiences that you had with her? Are there just times that you had together alone where you just sharing the passion for food, sharing the passion for ingredients, just looking back?
I don't know, there are so many of those moments. I mean, my mother had that small restaurant in Lyon, and you know, we helped in the kitchen. Certainly after I worked in Paris, and then I worked with Claude, and we were under 3 different presidents in France. And I go back in my family, I count 12 restaurants. I think I said 7 there, 12 restaurants owned by 12 women. My aunt, cousin, mother, different ones. So it was all a woman's world. I was the first male to go into that business. And after having been with the president, I'd go back to Lyon or Valence, my aunt there, and go to a restaurant in the kitchen. I start doing something. She'll push me over and say, "Don't touch that. You use too much of this, that too." No one was very impressed. I mean, being with the president. Right.
Now, I was struck when you said, was it when you cooked for the first time for the Fireman's Ball? Was it the Fireman's?
Yeah, right.
And you said you kind of found yourself, that you no longer had to have
yes.
your mom in your ear. So I was just wondering,
Right.
talk about that moment a little bit, when you kind of found yourself.
Well, yes, when you find yourself a little bit. I mean, the point is that the cook was really low on the social scale all those years. You know, as I say, good mother wanted her child to marry a lawyer, a doctor, or certainly not a cook. And now we are really genius, so I don't know. But yes, there for the first time I was away from my mother. I had to do a dinner for like 80 people, and those large fish, those are collins, which is a kind of a big egg, you know, that we poached. I did with a mayonnaise too. So I started realizing that I could do that by myself and set it up. So it was a bit liberating to a certain extent, yeah.
When you went to Paris, I was struck by the fact that you said you worked at 100 different restaurants. So
Yes.
did they keep letting you go, or why were there so many restaurants?
That's true. That's true. It's not explained properly. I work in over 100 restaurants. The point is that I work at the Plaza Athénée in Paris for 7 years. But my day off, I go to, at the time they show my picture with a little card of La Société des Cuisiniers de Paris, Society of the Chef of Paris, which doesn't exist in this country. I don't know why. You know. So on your day off, or anytime you go there, they know your name, you are classified as first commis, chef de partie, whatever in the kitchen, and they get you a job for the day. People call and they say, "I need someone for today and tomorrow. The garde-manger or the associate that didn't come up." So you would go there, get a job. My day off, many times, I had 2 days off. I'll go to La Société and work in a restaurant. I end up from the Galerie Lafayette like Public or whatever, Soup Populaire, you know, and up to great restaurants. You never know where you would end up. So it was kind of a great way of learning. So I work in many restaurants this way. Claude did as well. In fact, when we worked for the president, when we knew there was Madame de Gaulle at night, so there were 3 or 4 for dinner, I said, "Okay, you can handle it. I'm going to go." I go to do one restaurant like that one day or one evening, so I could make a little bit of money that we split. Or then the next week he did it, and we split because we didn't really have much money. So yes, we work in a lot of different restaurants. It's a great way to learn, because when you come like this, you introduce yourself to the chef. I'm from La Société. Say, "Okay, go to the sauce." Well, you got to start working right away. You look at the menu too. It's not like you have to wait a day or two to get used to the place. So yeah, you learn quite fast.
I'm curious that you've emphasized it was your first book, but you talk so much about technique, that you
Yes.
really had to be a master of your craft. And I'm wondering though, and it's easy for you, this humble man with passionately driven, just keep going forward, but where does, you need to know the technique, but then where does just pure talent come in? You know, if we learn the technique, will we all be master chefs?
No.
Or
But conversely, you know, we talk about, we are doing 4 American masters here. Julia Child, James Beard, who was never done, and Alice Potter that did. And for years and years I worked with Julia. And I work with James Beard too. And James Beard always said, "I'm not a professional chef." Julia always said, "I'm not a professional chef." And that doesn't take away from the quality of what they are cooking. It's just the training, the speed and all that. You're in a restaurant, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. At 12 o'clock you have 80 people sitting down. You have to produce. It's another way of training. So for a professional chef, you have to be a technician first. You have to learn the trade, move faster. That being said, I know a fair amount of professional chefs who are very good technicians and are relatively lousy cook. The food is okay, but never that great, you know. And conversely, I know people were like Julia, James Beard, certainly my friend Gloria Zimmerman, Rebecca here, who are not professional chefs and can cook maybe dinner better than me, or Claude, with the food better to taste. It's a different type of training, you know. So. What did you ask me again?
No. Don't worry. We're going to to get your questions. I just wanted to ask one other question and maybe it's because I know them both and knew Julia well too. But I wanted to ask a little bit about Julia. A story that wasn't in here, and I thought it would be fun to share, is the first time you kind of encountered Julia, which was actually through the editor, was it
with Helen, yes.
With Helen, who was Better Homes and Gardens. Yeah, tell that story a little bit about kind of how she described her and how you encountered her, because I thought it was a wonderful story.
House beautiful. Yeah, it was in the early 1960s, and I became friends with Helen Macaulay, who became my kind of surrogate mother. She was never married. She had much older than me. She took me under her wing, if you want, and she showed me that manuscript one day. She said, "Look, I have that manuscript I just received to review. It was Mastering Their French Cooking." She said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I don't know, I think it's pretty good. It's well explained, done too." She said, "Okay, the woman is coming from Pasadena. She's coming next week. Let's cook for her." So she's a very tall woman with a terrible voice. So that was Julia. So yes, I met Julia there, and at that point, no one knew her because she was never like the food editor of a magazine, didn't write for a newspaper. I'd never done television before that, and it was her first book. In fact, the first time I met her, I spoke French with her, more than English. Her French was better than my English. She came from France. She had been living there for a few years. In fact, she always said that we started cooking together because she came to France in 1949, and I went into apprenticeship in 1949. Of course, I was 13 years old. She was 23 years older than me, something like that. So, but we came there at the same time. So the way people were cooking, the way the brigade, the chef and the restaurant were running. So we were kind of raised in the same kind of spirit too. So that's what we started together. Cooking.
Good. And kind of, you captured it, and they certainly captured that moment with the spinach. You could feel it, the tension, right? They were both digging in.
Yeah, we were always arguing. She was much more French. In France, you always cook the spinach in water at that time, press it into a bowl, and you have all those bowls of cooked spinach ready. Someone needed, you take some of those to saute and all that, which I don't do anymore. But but she wanted to do it this way. Okay.
She didn't let down.
She never. One time we did a roast of lamb. I remember it, a leg of lamb roasted, beautiful. And she went on a pet peeve here that we could not get meat of high quality because people did not age the meat properly. And it was true, whether it was beef or whatever. She said, "No, it's tough because it's not aged properly." It was right. So we did that leg of lamb there. We started it with garlic. I roasted it to find it was great. I sliced it. She said, "Jacques, it's beautiful, just pink, 2 times." She tasted it, very good, but it's tough. It's not aged enough. I said, "I know." Anyway, so the day after, we made salad because we didn't have any recipe. Remember, in those shows, we decided the day before what we were going to cook. So no recipe. So the back kitchen was crazy. They had nothing to look at. In any case, the day after we did salad composed, a different type of salad. So we still had like 5 minutes. The guy said, "What else can you do?" I said, "Well, let's do a salad, a green salad with the sliced lamb left over around, like we had that leg of lamb left over." So I sliced the lamb. She said, "Jacques, that's beautiful too." She tasted it. "It's still tough." I know. Oh, yes.
What was the most memorable moment with you, with Julia, a private moment? Something that people, I remember when I met her and I sat down, we did some radio pieces, GBH, and I sat down with her and she talked a lot about women. You know what I mean? She really was a champion of women and women in the kitchen, and it really struck me. And I think that she never was vocal about it, but it was something that she really kind of emanated from her.
Of course.
What was a moment of something that you understood about her from that long friendship that you had, about who she was as a human being, and kind of what made you so close?
We had a lot of moments. Certainly, we drank a lot of wine together, and but she was on television the same way she was off television. There was no difference, and she loved working for PBS as I do. We don't even have the right to endorse any product or work for one of the sponsors. So that makes your life much easier. You don't have to kowtow to the sponsor. That being said, when we did one of the show together, it was Jess Jackson, who was the president of Kendall Jackson. And in addition to Jess Jackson, Kendall Jackson Winery, he had 32 winery, I believe, called Artisan and Estate, La Cambria, Stone Street, La Crema. So there were hundreds of wine to choose from. And in addition to that, he said, you can have French wine, Italian, whatever you want. They were very generous this way. So we did drink a lot of wine. So when he came, he said, he called me from California. He said, can I come? I want to take you and Julia out for dinner. And we want to look at a couple of shows. I said, great. So they came, they sit down. And so the producer told me, what are you going to cook? Jacques, I said, I don't know, but don't worry. I mean, we start the show opening a bottle of white wine anyway, and we keep on drinking throughout the show. So anyway, we cooked, and at the end, I forget what I did, some type of meat, what we did. And so at the end, I said, well, Julia, we have beautiful roast beef, whatever it was there. What, do you want a little Merlot with that, or a cab, whatever? She said, I want beer. What do you want beer? Kendall Jackson, yes, she want beer. I said, Julia, we don't have beer. We have beer. She had beer underneath.
All right, well, let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question? Yes.
I was curious, what was going through your heart and mind when you made the decision to leave the restaurant to go to Howard Johnson's? Was it just incredible?
Well, the point is, it's probably overemphasized the fact that I did not go to the White House, and I'm a Democrat, so for Kennedy. The point is that, as I may have mentioned, the cook was really very low on the social scale, and there was no television, whatever, in France. I'd never been on radio or newspaper or whatever. The cook was in the kitchen. No one ever called you for kudo, and if anyone come to the kitchen was to complain about one thing or another. So when I was asked to go to the White House, I had absolutely no idea of the potential for publicity of the White House. You know, so in fact, it was a friend of mine, René Verdon, which you see in some picture here, one of the naked chefs with me, who was the sous chef at the Essex House, who took the job there. And it was the time when Mrs. Kennedy started taking pictures with her chef. It was the early 60s, women liberation, organic gardening, a lot of social changes. So that started changing there, unbeknown to me. If you ask anyone who was the chef at the White House before René Verdon, which happened, I know, to know that it was a black woman from the South, no one would have known her, no more than they knew me or anyone else. So I just want to say that the fact that I didn't go to the White House, in the context of the time, I didn't realize any of the potential. Conversely, however, Howard Johnson was mass production, American taste. I worked with chemists. It was another world altogether that I didn't know anything about, and that I would learn a great deal, and I did. I opened that restaurant called La Potagerie on Fifth Avenue. I could never have done it. Then I opened the World Trade Center with Joe Baum. I set up the commissary in the tower. And then I was a consultant in the Russian Tea Room in New York during the 80s. All those jobs, I would never have been able to do those without the training of Howard Johnson. So I did learn a great deal. It was another world, you know. Yes. And
how much of that experience, too, was also about Howard Johnson, the man himself? I mean,
yes.
And giving you the freedom to, he basically said, do whatever you want to do.
Well, very generous this way, was great. He came to my wedding. In my wedding that we saw, I thought we saw him, and we saw it, but he wasn't there. But I know I picked him up. He was waiting, sitting on a case of Dom Pérignon champagne, waiting for me to pick him up. So because he had a boat, yes, he came with his boat in Saga Harbor, whatever. I came to pick him up. So he was a great man, very, I loved him, as a kind of father figure to me, and he was an extraordinary man, I thought. So I had a great deal of affection for him, yes.
Some other questions? Yes. Mm-hmm.
So both you and Julie Child, you never have your own brand for the cookware. Not like all the chefs nowadays, everybody wants to get their name stamped on almost everything. So what is it like? Why did you make this decision? It's like a philosophical difference.
No, I mean, certainly, as I said, on PBS, and again, it's better now, but at the beginning at PBS, I did 13 series of 26 shows with KQED, that PBS station in San Francisco, for the last 30 years. And at the beginning, I remember they would put sticking paper to like the food processor, the stuff, no name around. They don't do it anymore. But you would never work for a sponsor. I never really endorse, you know, any product. The only one that I have now, I am at Sur la Table, you know, which is a 150 store, whatever, because it started with not my cooking, but my panning. They love my a lot of chicken cook that they do, so they have a whole series of plate, napkin, mug, all that type of stuff with my panning, more than cooking. So again, there I did those drawings for them to do that, but otherwise I have never really endorsed or worked with any other product. Yes, right. But yeah. Yes, I'm not sorry.
Oh, you said you could have had so many opportunities to do it, though.
Well, yeah, sometime we were asked, but as Julia said, you know, on PBS, we were very happy not to have to cow to any. I remember one time I did a series, and it was that organization called I Can't Believe It's Not Butter, some type of margarine. You know, put money in it. You know. Well, it's PBS. PBS needs money each time to do any type of thing. And they say, what do you think? I say, well, it's not for me to decide if they pay for one of the sponsors, but I'm not going to use that stuff. But, you know, so anyway.
Yes, yeah?
So my husband is a chef, and he has been working on your omelet, which I've been very lucky to benefit from that. Once he masters the omelet, what do you recommend he tries next?
Well, to give 1 or 2 omelets to his wife to start with, you know. But I do 3 different types of omelette. This one is kind of emphasized. My mother would have done an omelette just about like any diner here with larger curd, you know, one folded differently, which I do occasionally. Sometimes I'm more in the mood for that. Then we do a flat omelette, which is another type of omelette, and then the classic French omelette that I did here, which is differently done. One is not better than the other. It's just a different type of technique. But certainly when I work, like in all those restaurants I did in Paris, when you work somewhere you start with to work, if you apply for a job, the chef very often will tell you, make an omelette. You know, that was kind of a, yes, a base, you know, to know whether you have some technique and some... But, you know, the world was quite different. As I said, at the Plaza Athénée in Paris, for example, we were 49 chefs. A famous dish, which I think they still do, is Ducasse now with the chef there. The lobster Plaza Athénée, the lobster soufflé of the Plaza Athénée, which I've done in several times in shows. Well, I bet you the 49 chefs could have done it in the kitchen. No one would have known which one had done it. That was the idea at the time, was to conform. You go to a restaurant, you learn the techniques, you know, the specific dishes of that place, and you move to another place, you move to another place. The idea was to conform, totally different than now, you know. So it was, in a sense, less pressure on chef, because you didn't have to show off or change your dish or create, or that didn't really exist, you know. So different world.
When you're cooking at home, how many childhood recipes do you still cook? I mean, how much, you know, because it's so much you said about family and memories and being together. So I'm just wondering, you know, are there recipes from your childhood that you still make?
Some, but, you know, things are really determined by the market. I go to the market, you know, I say I'm going to do some zucchini sauté, they're beautiful artichokes, half price, a chicken for 2, that's what I go for, you know. So, yes, this, and, you know, my wife was born in New York City from a Puerto Rican mother and a Cuban father. So, you know, I may want to do an arroz con pollo or one of those things. She loved Oriental food, so we do some Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese food. You know, that's the interesting part of it, if you want, because I am looked at very often as maybe the quintessential French chef. And you open my book, and I have a black bean soup with sliced banana and cilantro on top, and I have a shirami sushi next door, then I have a lobster roll from New England or clam chowder. So I am probably, after over half a century in America, the quintessential American chef, you know, in that sense. It's true. I have never really, I don't think I've ever been very chauvinistic about, you know, being French, cooking French. And I don't try to be French, but at the same token, I don't try not to be French. You know, the technique that I've learned to other kids, that's what I do for, but I do all kind of cooking, you know. I don't, yeah.
And do you still experiment for yourself? Is
Oh, yes.
experimenting an important part for
All the
you?
time. I am with Claude. We, you know, after doing it for years and years, I look at some recipe, I say, why did I do that this way? You know, always a kind of simplification and all that. I think I'm very Cartesian this way, certainly, still. But I'm doing a book now, where I have a book coming out in the fall that I do with my granddaughter. You'd see only her a little bit here in one of those, called The Lesson of a Grandfather. And I do a series, so we illustrated the book together, and we are doing like 32 show, I mean, like 5, 8 minute, 10-minute show of one recipe each that we are doing, we're going to do in June. And certainly, as you get older, your metabolism changes too. The cooking gets really, really simplified and all that. As a young chef, you keep adding to the plate, adding more of this, more of that. And as you get older, I take away from the plate. So you're left with a tomato, just the right temperature, coarse salt, a bit of olive oil on top, no more embellishment. So they change, you know.
Are there other questions? Oh, the one in the red, right there.
Hi, I was really intrigued by the fact that you were so driven to get your college degree, having already reached a degree of success in your profession that most wait a lifetime. So I'm curious, what did you take from that experience at Columbia that had an influence on the rest of your career?
You know, being at Columbia certainly prevent me about having a complex about not having an education, which is already a big thing, you know. I gave the commencement address at Columbia a few years ago, and after I remember quoting, I think, Gilbert Chesterton saying, you know, an education is very important. Without an education, you're likely to fall in the deadly danger of taking educated people seriously. So, you know, that's very important. Yes, I go back to cooking, but at another level, if you want. You know, I do it because I love it, because that's what I do without any... It's different from American chefs, certainly, because so many American chefs that I know are college graduates too. They started much later in life. But for us, starting at 13 years in the kitchen, all of the European, we did not have any education whatsoever. In fact, you know, interestingly enough, when I came to America, I worked at Howard Johnson. Well, that was the first time I dealt with, quote, American chefs, and all of them were African American. All of the white, quote, white chefs that I knew in New York, all the chefs of big restaurant hotels were German, French, Spanish, Swiss, a lot. There was no American. Before the CIA started at the end of the 60s, early 70s, like Tom Colicchio said, it was another world, you know, which has changed a great deal. Yes, there is no way that I could have done in my life what I did without going to Columbia, you know. So yes, it was a great experience in my life, without any question, yes. And at BU too, I've been here a long time.
I know, there was a woman in the back, yeah, right there, yep.
I'm just wondering, it's hopefully going to be spring soon. What spring things do you look forward to cooking?
I'm old, you know, so could you rephrase that?
What are some of the things that you like to cook when it's springtime? When springtime comes, what do you love? What
again, you know, the market. I mean, I know that I'm in the refrigerator at BU. I was teaching yesterday there, the day before. We did a dinner for like 80 people last night, Claude and I and the student, and the lady was very generous. She brought me an incredible asparagus, which I have in the refrigerator there that I'm going to pick up tomorrow. So yes, without any question, I go to the market. I have a little farm next to my house in Connecticut, and I was there last week already. The peas are not in, but they will be there the week after next. So peas, whatever, I got some asparagus from there. So yes, without any question, whatever the market offer, you know, that's what determines cooking at night. And I am in a very good area where I have a great fishmonger there. So shad roe, my wife absolutely adores shad roe, so now the shad are in, the shad roe, those are the things coming in, and that's what we go by, you know. Then a little later in the season, if there is enough frog in my pond, I have a pond at my house, I go pick up a few frog. When Claude was fishing, he used to fish a lot of trout upstate New York, that I would smoke trout, so we had fresh trout, and yes, that's what we do. Then the mushroom will start. We already have some of the mushroom who grows in the dust wood there. We have a kind of a, forget the name, but my brain is going very often. But yes, we pick up about 30 different types of mushroom, starting with the chanterelle next month, and 2 different types of boletus. So they're part of it. We're getting some wild lick now. Yeah, that's what life is all about, you know, a great deal of that. Yes, sir.
Howard Johnson had, was it 1,000 restaurants across the country, or several hundred restaurants at the time that you were working with all of those? I mean, it must have been an amazing challenge to get the quality the same at a high level at so many places. And I as a child, having been to Hojo's many times,
yeah.
I can't resist asking you, did you have any say in the ice cream flavors?
Yes,
oh,
that's
yeah.
good.
No, actually, you know, at Howard Johnson, we had prime beef. Mr. insisted, we had Red Coach Grill, which was another division of Howard Johnson. The quality was really quite incredible. The fried clam that we did, we couldn't do it today. Those clams were maybe as big as this, very deep sea clam. We only use the tongue. We shred through a machine to do those strips, to do the fried clam, and the body was used in the clam chowder. You know, so the quality, when I came to America, I went to that supermarket one of the first time. And, you know, there was only one salad, it was iceberg. There was no leek, no shallot, no oriental vegetable, nothing of that. But there was incredible steak, lobster, stuff that in France would cost a fortune. At that time, to do a fancy dinner in America was to do like a beef burgundy. You know, because steak was so ordinary. In France, well, you do stew because it's too expensive to have a steak. Steak is a big deal when you had a steak. So there was a kind of reversal. But you can always find quality. And as I said, the supermarkets have never been as beautiful as they are today. I mean, compared to what they were 50, 60 years ago, just amazing. And I think the most exciting cooking in the world is probably in the United States now. I mean, 24,000 restaurants in New York. The amount of ethnicity that there is just, I mean, we go to restaurant, I go to a restaurant and I look, I say, I don't know anything about cooking. You know, I mean, I look, it's just amazing and very exciting.
The ice cream, did you have any input?
Oh, the ice cream. They want to know, did you have any input into the kinds of ice cream?
Well, you know what? It's an interesting thing because Mr. Johnson asked to France, Pierre Franet, and the ice cream in France was far to be as good as the Howard Johnson ice cream. The best one we found at that time was in Amsterdam, up to Sweden too, because they would use milk and some cream up to about 7–8% quality. Now, the ice cream we did in France, and even gelato in Italy and all that, were done with a crème anglaise, that is a custard cream, that is with egg yolk and milk. So it was high, but it was homemade type of ice cream, or in restaurant. You didn't buy it. Otherwise, commercial ice cream we had in France was in the area of 4% butterfat at the time. Ice cream at Howard Johnson we did with half and half. I mean, it was 11 or 12% butterfat, no comparison. Remember, Claude? He loves because he was a pastry chef in France. So we were talking about that not too long ago. He told me, you know, I remember the first time at Howard Johnson I had the pistachio ice cream. He said in France we were doing pistachio, a quarter of it, we put like a dozen pistachio in it. Here that you had so much pistachio, and I remember you know, I love the rum and raisins myself and all that. So a very good ice cream, yes.
There's a question in the back. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup. I have a question about what advice do you have for someone who is thinking about becoming a chef, particularly for someone from a non-Western background?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good question, you know, but this is America. That's the point, you know. Everything is possible in America, and still is now, even with ban on immigration. But anyway, we're not going to this. Yes, everything is possible here. Wherever you are, wherever you come from, You know, as I said, I could never have done what I've done, I think, in another country except here. To be a chef, you know, you have to love what you're doing. When we were a kid, of course, as I said, there was no glamour to it. And so you certainly did not go into that business to become, quote, famous. And now, a lot of chefs are famous, but the point is that the young chefs who come on the trade to be Bobby Flay or Mario Batali or whatever, it's very likely that it's not going to happen. So it's not a good idea to go into that trade to, quote, become famous. Because you still work 12, 13, 15 hours a day. You still work Saturday, Sunday. You still probably get varicose veins by the time you're 40 years old or more. And you don't get that much money. So, you know, the only reason you would go in that is because you love it. Because you love to feed people, it satisfies you, you know, it makes you happy. And at that point, if you go for that very valid reason, you may become famous and fine, it may happen along the way, but you don't really go for another reason than that, you know. I mean, the food, you know, working in the kitchen is a great equalizer. You know, at that point, you know, when the food come in and the order are coming in, whether your skin is black, yellow, green, or whatever, makes no difference. Whether you are male or female, the table is the equalizer where you all eat together, but the kitchen even more so. So, if you like that type of thing, if you like what you do and to feed, yes, it's a great. When I tell, you know, people tell me, well, my kid is 14 years old, 15, they want to go into the kitchen. I say, well, during the summer vacation, sure, wherever you live, you can find a, you know, a diner, a cafeteria, whatever, to put the kid in, as a dishwasher, in the kitchen, in the dining room, front, in the back too. And after the summer, if the kids still have the bug, well, maybe he could consider, because it's not as you know, flamboyant than people make it seem. You know, the kitchen is still pretty hard work, you know, so you really have to love it. But we always did. I mean, we still do. Love to cook for people, or cook together. I mean, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
question in the back.
Hi, Chef. I'm a professional pastry chef, and I'm wondering, I understand the industry and it's tough. How do you sustain your love and passion for all of these years? And have you ever thought about leaving the industry, and what would you have done?
Well, I'm always hungry, so I cook. I cook. So you're an historian. It's interesting because when I was at Columbia and still after, until very recently, in fact, you know, we created that program at Boston University, that Master of Liberal Art with a concentration in gastronomy. At that time, it was the President Silbert that Julia sent letter to him to create that program, that program, which to a certain extent is still kind of unique. Much prior to that, when I was at Columbia and before, you could not talk about food. And even after, if you talk about food, it has to be through the guise of another type of social science, certainly anthropology, history, sociology, any of those. So you have to disguise your food to go through that. Now it's changing. There is, you know, thesis and all that purely on food in one area or the other. So it's exciting. For me, as I said, from one thing to the other, I do a lot of planning, and I don't kind of confuse one of the other, but it's all part of who I am, and the planning kind of satisfies me at another level than food does too, but it's part of who I am. Claude painted also for many years, and he's crazy about classical music. That's what he does, hours and hours of the day listening to it. So we all have our way of coping with life, you know. And we drink wine, a lot of wine.
That'll get you through. Other questions?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Chef Pepin, you've obviously mastered a lot of techniques and skills in the kitchen. Is there one particular one where you looked around through your career and felt like, this one I'm truly excellent at, or I'm better than the others, you know, that for whatever reason came naturally, or you particularly enjoyed it?
In the technique, and with the student the last 2 days, teaching them the position of the knife, exactly how to do it and so forth, everyone can learn that. Some will learn it faster than others, much faster. Some are more, you know, that kind of manual dexterity, some are much more adept to it than others. But that comes. And again, my son-in-law Rolly, that you saw in the film here, teach cooking actually at Johnson & Wales in Rhode Island. And in the last few years, the last couple of years, him and my daughter have created a foundation under my name. And the foundation that we want to do, he had wanted to do that, was for kind of disenfranchised people, you know, people coming out of jail or veteran people. So we're not talking about kids, I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 50 years old people who want to learn. And I wanted to teach them. I have that video of like 4 hours of technique that I have in a book called Untitled Pepin, and I did a series of 12 half-hour show at KQED in the 80s about technique, from opening an oyster to doing a caramel cage to running out a chicken or that type of thing. And this is what I would want to teach people like that, not for them, even if they don't have much talent, not for them to work at Le Bernardin in New York or at Thomas Keller, but to be able to run a little restaurant and kind of redeem your life. So those type of technique, I feel that anyone can learn them. It's a question of repeat, learning, and so forth. Other home cook, you don't need to do that, but other professional, yes, you need the speed and so forth. But without any question, some learn much faster than others, you know. And I know I've seen a fair amount of chefs who are not very good technicians, have a great sense of taste. So, you know, but great chefs like Thomas Keller, I would say first, are good technicians. Then they have talent. Then if they put some love into it and a bit of creativity, then you can get to superlative cooking occasionally.
Do you think that's hard for some people to learn, though? You said put some love into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That idea of just being able to experience the cooking. Once you've mastered the technique, to kind of love it and be with it. Do you think that's a hard thing for many people to get over, just to enjoy the process?
You see those shows on television, which are reality shows, where it's mayhem in the kitchen. Everyone is yelling, screaming at one another. That does not exist in a regular kitchen. People don't realize that if you go into the kitchen of Eastern Standard with Nikki, one of our former students, the chef there is no noise. You know, the waiter coming, he say, ordering table 5, this and that, pick up table 7. It's like a ballet, everyone is moving, giving. The television comes, they stand there for 10 minutes, 3 cameras, they say, that thing is boring. There is nothing going on. You know, no one is yelling at whatever. But no, in the kitchen, that's the way it is, you know. So it's not what you see on television, you know, basically. And what your question? You were asking about
I had asked if you, like, when I'm home in the kitchen sometimes and I'm just cutting my carrot sticks for the week, that you get into a rhythm and you just kind of enjoy it and you feel like it's going well.
It's fun.
Are there things, is there something in particular for you in the kitchen that you've always felt like just you've done it well?
Yeah, doing the dishes. You know, doing everything. I cook, I do my recipe. You know, I have my secretary, Norma, we used to went briefly here, 36 years, I think. She'd been with me, 37, whatever. I am alone in the kitchen. I do recipe, I go to the market, but if I have an idea, I have a yellow pot, I start doing it. I rinse my pot over and over again. I reuse the same pot. If I use the food processor, I have to make breadcrumb. I do that first, then another thing, and finally maybe the mousse of chicken, so I wash it once out of 4 times. You know, I'm used to that type of thing, and there is something a bit zen for me to just redo my stuff, you know, without talking to anyone, just listening to music or whatever. Yes, there is that kind of rhythm. I mean, after 51 years of marriage, I don't remember any time when I'm home that my wife and I don't sit down for dinner and we do a bottle of wine, sometime 2, that we cook dinner and talk and whatever. It's part of who we are, what we do, a very important part of our life. Claude too, each time, you know, at home, for us.
Does Gloria ever cook?
Yeah, she does.
She does.
My wife is a very good cook.
Yep.
And as I said, Oriental food. I came last week. She did a fantastic shrimp dish. I don't know where I was. Anyway, so a Korean style that she did. Yeah, she's a very good cook. And it's not like people say, oh, what does your wife, she cook and I came into the kitchen. It's not like I come into the kitchen, she's cooking, she tell me, darling, what do you think? I come into the kitchen, she say, don't touch anything. That's what she said. Yeah.
Yes, yeah?
Given that the perception of food and gastronomy has changed, like you're talking about, and having programs like the gastronomy program here, which thank you for that. What do you anticipate? What are you excited about? What would you like to see in the world of gastronomy from those of us who are not necessarily in the kitchen, but are in the world of gastronomy? And what advice might you have for us of where we can explore and what you would like to see?
You know, the world of food is extraordinary and very, very vast. I talked to the student yesterday too. We have a certification program here in the culinary art, which is a very small group. It goes from usually 10 to 15 people at the most. I think we had like 10 this time. And some of those are into the graduate program that we do with the Master of Liberal Arts. Some partake of both. Some of them already work in the kitchen, some don't. I have to say also that I've done that for over 30 years. And like 30 years ago, 15 people. I remember having 14 men, 1 woman. Now, yesterday we had 9 women, 1 man. You know, the whole things have changed. A woman getting involved into the professional world of cooking. And conversely, men invading the domain of the woman at home, invading the kitchen and cooking at home. You know, there have been those type of crisscrossing. But certainly there, I tell the student, a lot of you don't really know what you're going to do. You know you want to go into the food world. So certainly whether you become a food critic, a food writer, a food stylist, work for General Food, or for the Oil Council, to go to Italy, or any of the things associated with food, which is billions and billions of dollars, you don't lose your time by taking that type of program, because ultimately it always relates to food. So whatever you've learned there, you know, whether you become a food critic or the concierge of a restaurant or whatever, you will use what you've learned there. So yes, it starts in the kitchen, and then after you move in other direction. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's true or not, I read that less and less people are cooking at home even now, more and more into restaurants. But cooking at home is extremely important for kids, for family, for structure. I mean, you know, when you kid come back from home, from school, certainly for me when I was a kid, you're in the kitchen, you know, and you smell that kitchen, the smell, you hear the voice of your mother, your father, the cling of the dishes or the equipment. You know, those are very visceral things which remain with you the rest of your life, you know, so they are very important. And unless you sit down around the table with the kid, you know, which is not always enjoyable when they're in school, but unless you spend an hour and a half at night, well, you never talk to them, you know, you never talk to anyone. So, yeah, that's family structure for me is very, very important, you know, but that doesn't deprive you from going to the restaurant and enjoying it too, you know.
Other questions? Yes.
Chef, all the dishes that you made on the video look delicious. This country has a problem with obesity, and there are lots of people with chronic illnesses. So can you talk a little bit about portion control both at home and in restaurants, and is it possible to make food what you made that's heart healthy?
Yes, and this is a good question. I mean, that problem with obesity is not only in America now, in Europe too, much more than it used to be. You look, even in that movie that I had, people in the 50s, 60s, we never talk about a calorie at the time. We use more cream and butter than we ever use now. And everyone was much thinner than we are now. And now, you know, after 30 years of obsession with food and calorie and all that, we're probably fatter than we have ever been. I mean, it's a lifestyle, it's many, many other things. I know for me, I'm not particularly fat, but I'm really short for my weight. And if I were 6 foot, 6'2", my weight, I'd be good. But I'm not, but yes, it has, you know, it's more of a lifestyle than anything else now. You don't wonder why the kid, you know, kind of get obese now without, I mean, of course, the portion. I remember when I went to Howard Johnson, I started here. I couldn't believe the portion. I mean, the can of soda at the time, or the glass of soda, I think was 8 ounces. I said, wow, this is a big glass. Well, from 8 ounces, it went to 12, to 15, 30, 40 ounce soda now. I mean, they give you a plate of food. My mother would say, that's for 4 people, or whatever. So, yeah, the size of dishes and yeah, the way they eat, maybe more even than the style of food that you eat, you know. And maybe eating without an organized system of eating that is, people eat all the time in a different way. So I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but you know, I would still like to die in good health. I'm pretty old, so I'm trying to. But if you drink enough wine, it kind of pushes it through. You know? That's what we said anyway. Yeah. So.
Do you remember Julia? I remember that was it Knopf? I actually had pushed her to try to do a cookbook, and they wanted her to do alternatives. You know, they wanted her to do margarine. They wanted her to cut back, get rid of the cream. And I think in the end she said, "I'm not doing it anymore." She said, "I'm going back." And I think it's like she said in the film. You know, she said, who cares about nutrition? What did she say? I just want it to taste good. So I know. But I think it was all good things in moderation, and we know she lived a long and wonderful life. So
yeah, we get obsessed. You know, moderation. What's important is moderation in moderation. I mean, people get too much.
That's right. Yes, a question right here.
So when I watch your shows, you're chopping a lot without looking at it. How did you gain that skill? And then have you had any serious accidents?
Well, look at my finger. No, actually, I was showing that to the student yesterday. The students were cooking, looking. A young woman looking at what she was doing, cutting. I said, you cannot do that. You get to glue the knife to your finger. The finger has to be in the right position this way, not this way, but the knife has to be glued to it. So I glue my knife to her finger, and I start chopping, and I say, don't look at it. I say, push the knife. She pushed the knife, my hand went with it. She pushed her hand, my knife went with it. She released the knife, it followed. How long was it glued to it? I'm not going to cut myself. It's not a question of practice, you know, but yes, you do have to repeat kind of ad nauseam those techniques. Other professional chefs, to transcend the level at which you have to think about it, it has to be almost genetic by that point. It becomes part of yourself. Then you can think in terms of a combination of ingredients, texture too, I'm going to do this with that. And you can see a beginner, you know, slicing an onion, and you say, do you have any parsley? He say, don't disturb me. You know, so totally obsessed, you know, by that mechanical manipulation. You have to transcend that level. Other professional chefs to try to think about other things, you know, so your hand has to move automatically in one direction or the other. And that's a question of practice. Like any other trade, you know, if you want to become a good jeweler, you know, a good cabinet maker, like my father was, mason, a good surgeon for that matter. You know, there is a great deal of les ficelles du métier, the trick of the trade, or that kind of manipulation you do with your hand in any trade that you have to transcend before you get into another area of the food itself, you know. So, but as I say, especially for professional, you know. So.
I'm just curious, the evolution of kind of television for you, and how you kind of, how did you find the balance of technique, right? Because when you did your first cooking show, it really was heavily technique, and then it kind of evolved. So I just am wondering, kind of, in your own mind today, when viewers are watching, what do you want them to take away from that experience? How much is technique a part of it? How much of it is just sharing your soul? How, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I have 30 books that I've did, but I did La Technique and La Méthode, which are illustrated manual of cooking technique at the beginning. So that was very narrowly focused toward that area of food. At the antipody of it, I did a book called The Shortcut Cook, you know, where I show people. I did 2 books called Fast Food My Way, 2 series on television, which is maybe what people are using the most in my book. When you go to a professional kitchen, you have the prep cook who come in the morning. That prep cook will bone out the chicken, he bone out the fish, slice the mushroom, chop the shallot, wash the spinach. You know, everything is ready. I come to the store, I'm there, everything is ready for me. Someone order a filet, so I grab it, it's there, put some shallot on top, bit of white wine, bring it to a bowl, cook it. I cook it 3, 4, 5 minutes because I have that stuff done for me. in fast food my way, I did that. You can do that now with the supermarket. I went there and buy skinless, boneless breast of chicken, pre-washed spinach. I have a non-stick pan. I have all of this, and within, I did those shows, and 26, 28 minutes for a 30-minute show. With the ingredient, very often in the package, I would do 3 dish or 4 dish, cooking this way, which is, as I said, the opposite of what I show in La Technique, where I show you, how to, I went to get the frog in my pond so I could show you how to take the skin out of it, because you cannot buy the frog with the skin. So, that was at the opposite. So that's why maybe I have so many books. I had a column in the New York Times for almost 10 years in the 80s called The Purposeful Cook. So the idea was to cook for a family of 6 for a minimal amount of money. So I did a book called Cuisine Économique, which was part of those columns there. And, going to the market, I could buy chicken back, chicken neck, a pound of navy beans, a carrot, an onion, and do really good food for $3, $4, $5, $6 or whatever. So that was narrow to it. Then I did a book for the Cleveland Clinic for cardiac patient, weight loss. So that was focused in a totally different area of food. So I did many books in a sense because working out, with a different type of idea would apply my knowledge as a professional chef to that specific area of food. So that's why maybe I did so many. But to a certain extent, well, the last one. I did a book called People Know Less, called Chez Jacques, which was really the type of food that we do at home. And I tried to explain the recipe there the way we explain to a professional. So it was a different way of doing it. That is, if I go to a restaurant or I go to Claude and he cooks something, I say, gee, that was terrific. What did you do? He said, you know what I did? I sauteed that and I did this and that. I said, wow, that's a good idea. At that point, it's not a question of proportion. I know just those ideas and I can do something with it. So I try to do a book in that sense also. But by definition, the book I tend to explain maybe too much, with too many expressions for the ingredient. I tend to say, a pound of carrot, and I put about 7 carrots cut into dice, 3½ cups. And often I've had discussion with the publisher, say, you don't need those 3. I say, why not? I give those choice. They can take whatever they want about it, but which is not the way you do in a kitchen. But of course, there is that paradox that I did a thing actually for WNET in New York not long ago, the making of a recipe, which was at the news that night. They show it a few times. And the idea is that when you do a recipe, you start with an idea. I start with an idea. I say, gee, I'm going to saute this with that because I talk with someone or I see something somewhere. So I go to the market, I do it. I have a total freedom at that point. I can do whatever I want with those ingredients. By the time I put something in a skillet and I add a second thing, I already start establishing a process. So I write it down, Then it cooks for 3 minutes, so I put a timer on. And after 4 minutes, it starts getting a bit dry. So I say it's dry, so I put 1/4 cup of water in it. So I put in that thing, add 1/4 cup of water, which you never need to add, but that's what happened. So the dishes that I do by adding this, looking at it, adding that, testing, is purely a reflection of the moment. This is what happened at that moment. That's the way it progresses. That's where I go, And at some point you finish, you say, that's it. You write it down. I give you a typewritten page now. And the freedom that I had at the beginning is totally gone. Now you're totally structured into you do this, 2 minutes, you do that 1 minute. It's a total reversal. At least on a philosophical level, the writing down of the recipe destroys the recipe or the spirit of the recipe, But you still have to buy my book because I make a living from it. But yeah, there is that process. And also the idea that there is absolutely no way you can do a recipe exactly the same way each time. And that's what being a professional is. You go and eat in that restaurant, you say, well, they're doing a fantastic roast chicken, fine. Each time you go, it's exactly the same each time. In order for that chicken to be the same each time, it has to be different each time. There is no way you can have chicken exactly the same weight, the same amount of fat. You cook with gas, electric. You cook with cast iron or aluminum or stainless steel. It's humid, it's not humid, it's summer, it's winter, you're in a bad mood, you're in a good mood. To all of this, you know, there is variation. For a professional chef, that's the whole point. Since you don't calculate, you don't measure or whatever, you do a dish, you order a veal kidney, saute, whatever, I'm the chef there, I do it, taste, adjust. I'm shooting for a taste. It gets there, I put it there. Someone orders the same dish, 20 minutes later, 10 minutes later, I do it, taste, adjust, taste, and I serve it, it tastes the same way. If you had taken the recipe, you would see minute change in it, which you do unconsciously, adjusting and all that. And that's what being a professional, to have that food each time, you know, to get that type of consistency is very difficult, you know. But a good chef will do that, you know. So, yes.
Other questions?
I think that's a good spot to end on.
That's a great spot.
It's time to have a drink. Thank you. Thank you very much.